takes.
They supply books to Rwanda. And when the books are distributed in the schools in Rwanda before they are paid, they cost a third of what the same textbook costs in Nairobi.
How school heads connive with textbooks publishers to steal free learning cash.
We cannot leave the child with her until she opens up and says where the needles came from.
14 needles in baby's body, parents arrested and toddler taken into protective care.
NTV Tonight with Gladys Gashanja and Trevor Ombija.
Thank you for joining us. Our sign language interpreter tonight is Flora Atinu.
David Ndii, the NASA strategist, is a free man tonight. Ndii has been released on a 10,000 shillings police cash bail, after the Director of Public Prosecutions gave the directions.
The DPP also wants the Directorate of Criminal Investigations to forward to him the inquiry file once investigations are completed. But what exactly do police want Ndii prosecuted for? Enoch Sikolia with more.
For 3 hours, the NASA strategist was held in police cells here at the Milimani Law Court. And after that, the Director of Public Prosecutions directed that he be released on police bond, awaiting completion of investigations. A directive that put a smile on David Ndii's mother, who had visited him at the law courts. Okay, bye. Bye-bye. A warm embrace and a word of see you later as the established economist was escorted out of the Milimani law court cells to Pangani police station, from where he would later be released on police bond as directed by the DPP. Police wants Ndii charged with incitement to violence.
Apparently for some interview he may have done in one of the stations.
The constituent parts of a nation are in a willful union, and they are free to leave.
The NASA strategist has been on the forefront in making calls for some parts of Kenya to secede. Ndii is a key member of the NASA team driving the People's Assembly's agenda. The assemblies are part of NASA's plans to swear in Raila Odinga as president on the 12th of this month. Police also say that Ndii issued a statement over the weekend that the National Resistance Movement wing of NASA will do all it takes to ensure electoral injustices are corrected. They say this amounted to inciting the public.
To arrest someone in Mombasa, sneak them overnight to Nairobi is part of the torture. So you can see that the idea is not quite the charges. The idea is the intimidation around it. And that is what is highly regrettable, because that is not acceptable under the law.
And for the better part of Monday, David Ndii, who was arrested at the Kenyan coast on Sunday, was interrogated by detectives at the DCI headquarters along Kiambu Road.
The complaints they are talking about are issues that arose months ago. If they had any issue, one, ordinarily you would invite someone and tell them, you invite them to come and record a statement. That never happened. Secondly, you don't wait for somebody to leave Nairobi to go to Mombasa, then you go and pounce on them, especially when he's with the family. It is obviously intended to rain terror on him and the family.
Ndii, who was interrogated for more than 5 hours, was brought to the DCI headquarters early morning and only left few minutes after 2 p.m.
Tukikuja kama vijana, munatufungia. Tumefunga tai, munatufungia.
This year will not come down crumbling if we get it. It will still be there, even after we leave.
Drama ensued at the DCI offices early morning as officers temporarily barred NASA leaders led by Siaya Senator James Orengo from entering the compound.
It will be very good for you to tell the media why. Because you are a service. You know, and
you should not be afraid.
You
are part of this country.
The officers appeared to suggest that they were under strict instructions not to allow in NASA leaders. They were finally allowed into the holding areas to represent Ndii. The arrest of Dr. David Ndii has elicited sharp reactions, with members of the NASA coalition calling it a move by Jubilee government to intimidate the opposition. Enoch Sikolia, NTV, in the county of Nairobi.
Staying with our story, police officers who arrested David Ndii trailed him from Nairobi all the way to Kwale.
Well, speaking in Mombasa, Ndii's wife, Mwendega Tabaki, insisted that the officers did not follow the law during the arrest and says her family is under threat, as Peter Mwangangi reports.
When David Ndii, his wife and their 11-year-old daughter checked in at the Leopard Beach Resort in Diani on Friday, they hoped to attend their nephew's wedding on Saturday and then spend some time enjoying the pristine beach destination. But the visit was cut short after officers believed to be from the Flying Squad and Special Crime Prevention Unit arrived at the hotel Sunday evening.
My husband and my daughter, who's 11 years old, were on their way to the dining room to have their dinner. And on the way to the dining area, they saw 2 cars parked outside the hotel, and they were full. And my husband was a bit concerned. Who are these people? Who are these people? Because they were really looking at them. Then 2 of them came out of the car. They came towards them. They greeted them. And they told my husband, "Would like to have a word with you." So my husband said, "And I'm who? Aren't you David Ndii?" He said, "Yes, I am."
Mwende, who gave a detailed account of the incident, says 7 officers were involved and declined to give reasons for detaining him.
And I asked the man who was in charge, "I need to know who you are. I need to know who's taking my husband away." So he showed me his work ID, and I took his ID number, I took his service number.
But that was the beginning of a long night searching for Ndii. They did not find him at the Diani police station when they followed the convoy 10 minutes later. Police were later to lead her back to the hotel to search her room.
They came back and asked me, "Where are the computers?" I said, "Which computers? You know, our work, we leave our we came here for a holiday, we came here for a wedding. We left our computers in Nairobi."
Back at the police station, an adamant Mwende declined to leave until she was told the whereabouts of her husband. It was the arrival of Raila Odinga's daughter Winnie that eased things up.
Winnie Odinga actually came and started talking to them and asked them what's happening, what's this about. And at that point, I noticed they also changed a bit. So the whole idea of throwing me into the cell changed.
The IT expert, who had been working at the African Development Bank before 2014, had a message to President Uhuru Kenyatta, whom she says is responsible for bringing her back into the country to serve.
I want to ask the president, where is that gentleman in 2014 who asked me to come and create a single source of truth to create transparency in Kenya? This is not transparent. My husband is not a criminal.
The family of David Ndii says it has been living in fear and blames this squarely on politics.
Basically, when it comes to security, we know they've been sending people to our house right outside the gate, and even the compounds are next to ours. They have reported to us that there are people who come to our gate and just stay there. In addition to that, David himself gets a lot of threats, but you know, in the political world, you never know what is serious and what is not. And he's that person who believes, really, he believes in what he's saying, and I believe in him. I believe in him for a reason.
We have a feeling that this country is being taken back to the dark ages.
Peter Mwangangi, NTV, Mombasa.
The arrest of David Ndii is the latest in a series of events critics of the government have equated to the politicization of the police force.
NASA leader Raila Odinga says the arrest is part of a scheme by the government to silence those opposed to it and are demanding electoral justice. Andrew Cheng with the details.
And has been angered by the arrest of one of the most senior technical advisors in the NASA coalition.
These are basically designs to try to intimidate and blackmail the people of Kenya. Mr. David Ndii has committed no crime. And we know why Mr. David Ndii is being harassed here. And we know that the matter is not ending with Mr. David Ndii. I know that other people are going to be arrested.
The opposition, however, says its agenda will not change even with what is going on.
The people of Kenya will not be intimidated into submission. The will of the people of Kenya cannot be suppressed through arrests, through prosecutions, through blackmail, through intimidation, through tear gas, through bullets, through water cannons.
The state actions have also been criticized by the International Center for Policy and Conflict. The NGO accuses the Jubilee government of developing an autocratic and draconian style of rule meant to nip any form of assembly, political dissent and public protest in the bud. The ICPC says that the harassment of government critics is only likely to further polarize and divide the country, still reeling from the effects of the long electoral period. The state has been swift to act on voices against it. Immediately after the August 8th elections, officials from the Kenya Revenue Authority descended on the African Center for Open Governance, ostensibly because the NGO was not paying taxes. But this was widely believed to be an attempt to stop it from filing a petition against the re-election of President Uhuru Kenyatta.
Are you not ashamed of yourself? What are you? How dare you? What kind of behavior is this? How dare you? No, you're behaving like thugs. This is a government of thugs. Is this an organization led by John Ngiri?
And in October, the home of Jimmy Wanjigi, a close associate of the NASA coalition, was raided by police who claimed to be looking for illegal firearms. After a 2-day siege, they neither found any illegal firearms nor Wanjigi himself.
And it is political. My support for Baba here, which is unwavering and unshaken, and they will not dissuade us from the path that we have chosen. It is my democratic right and that those of every Kenyan, to choose and support in whichever manner they can, legally and peacefully, whoever they want.
Even the media has not been spared. On the 17th of November, when the opposition leader Raila Odinga arrived in the country, the Communications Authority gave an order barring television stations from broadcasting Odinga's procession live. The authority claimed that the event was likely to incite violence. Andrew Ochieng, NTV.
Education Matters Now. Education Cabinet Secretary Dr. Fred Matiang'i says 19 national schools from Nairobi are set to begin offering day classes.
Well, other than that, the government will start distributing textbooks to secondary school students starting next year to cut off cartels that have been stealing from the parents.
The CS announced the changes during the launch of the placement of Form 1 students at the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development. NTV's Sharon Baranga with more.
Once again, Education Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i has announced more reforms in the education sector. The CS has dissolved boards of primary and secondary schools that share a compound.
And we have agreed with TSC they will appoint one principal with 2 deputies, the deputy for primary and the deputy for secondary. Our capacities are constrained because of some nonsensical squabbling, where we're just behaving like warlords, and yet we are actually all supposed to focus on our children. So everybody, kila mtu anataka kuwa mkubwa. Sasa unajua hujatuuliza kama tutaleta desk kesho, and so on. And we spend all the time doing those things at the expense of the learning of our children.
Another major change on the way is the introduction of day schooling in 19 national schools in Nairobi.
We will work closely with those schools that are involved and ensure that we support them effectively.
Curtains have also been drawn on cartels who have been managing procurement of textbooks. The government will from next year buy and distribute textbooks for all secondary school students.
They supply books to Rwanda. And when the books are distributed in the schools in Rwanda before they are paid, they cost a third of what the same textbook costs in Nairobi. We should make that report available, so that you see that report for yourselves. You'll be very surprised at how we have been losing money. Books we have been told under the Orange Book are costing 800, now 200.
Selection of students who will be joining national schools is complete. The top girl, Goldalyn Kakuya, has been selected to join Kenya High School, while the second best pupil, Sharon Mudhoni, will join Alliance Girls High School.
The ministry ensures equity in placement in national schools by applying sub-county quotas based on candidate strength and affirmative action, where a sub-county candidature is too low to attract a quota, we still find a way of putting our kids in national schools. So I can tell you, and I can tell the country without fear or favor, that there isn't a sub-county in this country that does not have a child in a national school.
Doubts have been cast on secondary schools' ability to handle the high number of students who will be reporting as free secondary education takes effect from January next year.
General cumulative capacity for Form 1 is 1,053,742. That's our capacity, total capacity, public and private. But we had about 993,000 students who sat the exam, because all the time you must draw a distinction between those who registered and those who finally sat the exam, therefore qualified to be in Form 1. So you can realize that we have surplus, revolving around 50,000. But we suspect that because of the free secondary education, we will have a backflow. There could be children who missed Form 1 last year who may want to enroll this year and so on. So that will take care of the situation as it were.
And to ensure the free secondary education set to kick off in January next year is a complete success, the government plans on recruiting more teachers starting next year in the next 4 years.
As a commission, requested for an additional 12,696 teachers to be recruited annually.
2,740 classrooms, 349 laboratories, 326 blocks of sanitation facilities have been built for 2,710 regular and 30 special needs secondary schools from a budget of 6.4 billion shillings. Form 1 students are expected to report in their respective schools from 9th to 12th January. Sharon Baranga, NTV.
Definitely a development we shall be following up for you come next year. Now to health matters, and police in Thika are holding the parents of the 10-month-old baby in whose body at least 14 sewing needles were found.
Well, the baby was treated and discharged at the Thika Level 5 hospital after surgery to remove the needles from her bottom and stomach as well. The baby will be placed in protective care as police investigate possible abuse by the parents.
Daniel Mule tells us more.
Thika children officers took the 10-month-old from Thika Level 5 hospital for protective care, claiming that the mother could not be trusted with the child.
If the mother is not guilty, we'll have to relent the baby to the mother. But if there's any case of child abuse, she faces the consequences. She's the only person who can give us the information. And since she's not ready to open up, we cannot leave the child with her until she opens up and says where the needles came from.
Police later took both parents into custody moments after the father Isaac Gishuna Wanyoike and mother Jacinta Ndunge recorded statements at Thika police station.
The surgeon report, he said that the child was abused. The needles, 13 of them that were found on the rear part of the infant, it appears as if somebody pierced those needles in a rear.
Police allowed children officers to take the child's other siblings from the parents' home in Kiganjo to stay at the same children's home with the 10-month-old sister.
Mimi naweza fanya mtoto kama mambo kama hii na mimi siendangi kazi. Mimi nashindana na mtoto wangu. Niliwaambia tu mnginishika, mnanishika tu bure.
Kwa mambo kama hii mimi naomba serikali watu waachilie mpaka bibi ndio tuendelee kulea watoto wengine.
The charge is child abuse. There's a charge in the Children's Act if the child is abused, or if you assault any child, or if you injure any child, you are going to be taken to court.
According to the police, the welfare of the child is the most important, and the duration the child will take at the children's home will be determined by the course the case will take. Daniel Mule, NTV from Thika.
A rather heartbreaking story, Gladys, wouldn't you agree?
I still can't wrap my head around it, but definitely something we shall be keeping our eye on.
Absolutely. We hope that doesn't happen anymore, but we'll also be keeping you updated on all the developments there. Away from that, operations at the Dadaab refugee camp remain paralyzed for the second week following protests by host communities against the United Nations High Commission for Refugees.
Local residents are demanding inclusion in decisions made by UNHCR, especially as pertains to employment. Steve Juma reports.
Key operations such as distribution of food, which was to start on 1st of December to 8th, have been delayed until security for UNHCR and other agencies' employees is assured.
are supposed to benefit from the UNHCR because they are corporate. They are corporate. They are supposed to do corporate work. And the government at large to come to this issue and solve once and for all.
Food distribution was to start in Hagadera, followed by Dagalehi. But all these are stalled due to the ongoing standoff between the UNHCR and the host community. A section of leaders and elders held a press conference where they said they will not allow any activity to continue until UNHCR replaces the head of operations at the Dadaab camp.
The locals must be given utmost interest. The locals must be given priority. The locals must not be intimidated.
Local claims that the leadership of the camp has ignored their input, choosing to make unilateral decision on matters that affect them directly.
Kwambia serikali ama UN mtu yote ambaye anahusika na hiyo mtu sub office John Bosto, hiyo Bosto atoke kwa Dadaab. Sababu huyu hana maslaha yote katika jamii ambayo host community. Na tunaona yeye anaweka fitina, anaingia mambo ya siasa na anaingia mambo mingi. Yeye hata mimi nafikiri hakusoma mambo ya katiba ya UN. Hata hajui what is the host community, ile kitu anatakiwa, na anagawanya watu katikati ile watu wa community ambayo maka 27 waligawanya one host. Aliweka chuki baina yao.
The elders are accusing UNHCR of sacking local residents and replacing them with foreigners. The host community claims UNHCR has given notice of termination of employed to more than 100 youth. Steve Juma, NTV.
President Uhuru Kenyatta this evening met United Nations General Assembly UNGA President Miroslav Lajčák and discussed strengthening of the UN office in Nairobi.
Well, at the meeting at State House right here in Nairobi, President Kenyatta requested the president of the 72nd session of the UNGA to use his networks to help in the consolidation of UNEP and UN Habitat headquarters functions in Nairobi. Lajčák assured President Kenyatta that he will give the required support to bolster the UN office right here in Nairobi.
Over 4,000 heads of state, ministers, business leaders, civil society representatives and UN officials, including Lajčák, have gathered at the 3-day UN Environment Assembly in Nairobi to tackle the global menace of pollution as well as other issues relating to environmental conservation. At 20 minutes past the hour, we take off our short break. We'll be back with much more, including
anxiety after court orders recount of votes in petition against Nyamira governor. Thanks for staying with NTV. Now, the High Court in Nyamira has granted the petitioner's application on scrutiny and recount of ballot papers in 90 polling stations in the disputed Nyamira County gubernatorial election results.
Presiding Judge James Makao told the parties that he was satisfied with the evidence provided by the 7 petitioners' witnesses. He ordered the police provide security during the exercise, with only lawyers, agents and assigned court officials allowed during the exercise.
In the exercise, 46 polling stations will undergo scrutiny, and the report on the scrutiny and recount delivered in court on 13th December. Jubilee's Walter Nyambati, who came second in the August 8th election, polling 58,936 votes, moved to court, challenging Governor John Nyangarama's re-election.
The winner polled 63,949 votes. Nyambati claims the entire process was full of illegalities and irregularities. While primary school head teachers are urging the government to address challenges such as lack of infrastructure before implementing the new curriculum.
The Kenya Primary School Head Teachers Association chairperson Shem Ndolo warned the Ministry of Education against rushing the program before dealing with issues of capacity and staffing. Ndolo spoke in Mombasa at the ongoing annual Head Teachers Conference.
He praised the new curriculum, saying it will ensure harnessing and nurturing of talents and skills among children at an early age. The Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development has said that the 2633 education system will be implemented in January after the final induction of teachers.
All right, let's take a short break here on NTV Tonight. When we come back, business news.
Good evening. Welcome to NTV Business. I am Hudayfa Adin. Now, air pollution is the world's single biggest threat to human health, killing an estimated 6.5 million people globally per year. Most of these deaths are in developing world, leaving low-income countries struggling with losses in productivity, estimated at between 1.3 and 1.9% of the gross domestic product. This population problem is what global environment ministers are discussing this week at the United Nations Environment Assembly. And Zainab Bondati reports.
It has been said numerous times that Africa suffers the greatest impacts of environmental degradation, but it also stands to benefit the most if its ecosystems are protected. Besides frequent droughts, floods and food insecurity, Kenya has also had to contend with a heavily polluted environment, a problem that the entire world faces.
We estimate 13 million people die from pollution. This makes pollution the biggest killer on the planet, and we need to defeat it.
The exact scale of pollution in Kenya has not been established yet, and the little available data is either conflicting or not as detailed. This is mostly blamed on the country's lack of capacity to fully monitor the quality of its environment.
Every one of our consumer choices have pollution consequences. Everything we do, if we don't think about what is it going to mean in terms of pollution, we have a problem.
These pollution challenges are the subject of discussions at the 3rd United Nations Environment Assembly, which will be taking place in Nairobi over the next 3 days.
On behalf of the United Nations community,
environment ministers from around the world are expected to discuss solutions that will guarantee a pollution-free world, because available data paint a grim picture.
We have done a very bad job taking care of our environment. And the worst part of this is that we have very little room now to make mistakes. Very, very little room to make mistakes. And that is why we need science behind.
The resolutions that will come out at the end of the assembly are expected to satisfactorily address how governments will ensure safe air, water and soil for their citizens. The meeting will officially open tomorrow, and President Uhuru Kenyatta is expected to attend. As Kenya hosts this United Nations Environment Assembly for the 3rd time, it is doing so at a time when it has received global recognition for the success it has had with the ban of the plastic bags. This is even though the plastics is just a small percentage of the global pollution problem, and the UN Assembly says that even that one small step to ban plastic bags is significant towards ending the pollution problem. Zainab Bondati, NTV, Nairobi.
Now, the International Monetary Fund has appointed Nancy Asiko Onyango as the Director of Fund's Office of Internal Audit and Inspection. The Kenyan, whose appointment will take effect in February 2018, is to succeed Claire Brady, who left the fund after heading the office for close to 4 years. The accountant brings to the fund more than 25 years of experience in internal audit, strategic risk management, corporate governance, and IT risk management. Most recently, she was a CEO at Reliance Risk Advisory Solutions, based here in Kenya. Vivo Energy, the African Shell licensee, has rolled out a cash and share purchase deal with Engine Holdings, whose completion will see the oil retailer bring the number of petrol stations under it to 2,100 with an additional 300. The deal will also see Vivo Energy expand to 9 countries, bringing the number of countries where Vivo operates to 24. The new market for Vivo Energy include Tanzania, Rwanda, Democratic Republic of Congo, Zimbabwe, Zambia, among others. Vivo was ranked second last year with 16.6% market share, behind Total's 16.7% and ahead of Kenal Cobil's 15.2%. The transaction is subject to regulatory approval. Now, it will cost transporters 50,000 shillings to transport a 20-feet container cargo from Mombasa to Nairobi via rail, compared to 85,000 to 100,000 shillings charged by road transporters. These are estimates given by Kenya Railway as plans are underway to officially begin container transportation from Mombasa to Nairobi in January 2018. Nairobi Inland Container Depot in Embakasi will be the last point of offloading for cargo leaving the port of Mombasa. It is located 4 kilometers from Nairobi Passenger Station. In January, only container cargo will be transported, locking out large goods not in containers. This also includes petroleum transport, as safety additional standards of fuel handling have not been inculcated. Laban Cliff Onserio spoke to Atenas Maina, the managing director of Kenya Railways, and began by asking him how competitive cargo transport on rail will be compared to road transport. This is in view of the door-to-door convenience offered by road, while the last-mile challenge on rail.
The concerns for cargo owners have been much wider than that. It is about predictability. When am I going to receive my cargo? It's about efficiency. Is it taking days in CFSs in Mombasa? Is it waiting somewhere on the road? And that our value proposition to our customers is simple. That one, we'll be able to pick your container from the port. Our Port East terminal is based next to the inland, next to the berths. Our line extends right into the port.
That's actually been an issue because the accessibility, especially to the points, the terminals, has been a bit difficult. So perhaps that will also increase into that 50,000 cost that you say you're competitive.
Not quite. The accessibility from as far as cargo movement is concerned, our lines go right into the port. So we are able to pick cargo from the port, put it at our terminals, marshal a train, and as soon as you form a good train, you're now able to move it into Nairobi. The challenge that we've been having is on the passenger side.
And of course, that is actually a challenge that I know Kenya Railways will have to contend with. This is vandalism on your rail. First of all, talk to us about yesterday's case and what are your key learnings from this?
Yeah, yesterday we had an incident near Athi River, on Athi River Bridge, very early in the morning. There was some 4 people who attempted to vandalize the bridge. This was the second time it was happening in 7 days. But our police team, a very special team, have been very, very vigilant trying to secure these assets. And therefore, yesterday they were able to catch up with them. I'm told they were asked to stop, they couldn't stop, and therefore one of them was shot, another one was arrested, and 2 others disappeared.
That marks the end of business for the day. I am Hudayfa Aden. Have yourselves a good night.
Thank you for staying with us. The residents of Murang'a town are accusing police of colluding with conmen who purport to be selling raffle tickets.
Well, the angry residents protested as they chased away some conmen who managed to drive away after police intervened. Police were forced to disperse a crowd which had blocked the vehicle carrying the said conmen after residents got a tip-off that they attempted to con an elderly woman of 8,000 shillings.
Residents say the con game has been going on for a while and accuse police of abetting it. The furious residents had deflated the car's front tires to prevent the occupants from escaping and threatened to lynch them before police came to their rescue, allowing them to speed off to Murang'a police station.
Well, at the police station, journalists were forced to scamper for safety after the driver of the car almost ran over them as he sped away.
Vile imekuwa kuna mama alikuwa anapita hapa, right? Akaitwa na hawa watu on pretense that kuna pesa, kuna mchezo inaenda pale kama betting of some sort. Akicheza hiyo mchezo atapata simu mbili ama pesa, right? Sasa watu wawili pale kutoka pale stage ya Makoyo ndio wamekuja wakaenlighten huyu mama, wakamwambia usiende pale, hiyo hao ni watu ni conmen, right? Sasa hao watu kwa sababu wameona hao watu wawili pale wamemuita huyu mama, wakaenda wakawashtaki kwa polisi. Ndio hao watu waje wachukuliwa, watu wanaharibu biashara ya hao watu. Na hii biashara ni ile ya kupona.
Hao watu wanakuja na ile gari imesimamiwa na askari iondoke. Na wanakuja wanaiba sisi wazee, watu kidogo, watu aina yoyote. Unatudanganywa hati hii utakula. Unaambiwa utakuwa saa 9 tayari wameondoka.
Well, residents of Olongosua in Kajiado West continue to suffer the effects of biting drought despite the rains and floods that have wreaked havoc in many parts of the country.
There has been no respite for them as they continue to lose their livestock and livelihoods.
Carcasses of cows which could no longer make it in the drought litter Olongosua in Kajiado West. It is too much for some. The losses and the pain is heavy. The death of livestock due to the drought has left people vulnerable and needy.
Tumeteseka na kila kitu. Mifugo imeisha. Hata ile imebaki kama kuna mtu akona moja au mbili, simepelekwa kwingine. Ni wasasi tu ndio wako pande hii. Na hata wale watu wanakaa pande hii wameteseka kwa sababu hakuna kitu ya kula. Na tulikuwa tunategemea ng'ombe, mbuzi, na yote mbuzi iko lakini simehama. Saa hii tuko tu maboma peke yetu. Na hakuna watoto.
Contrary to the picture in different regions of the country that are receiving rains, the skies here remain clear with no sign of anything soon.
Ile shida sana tuko nayo saizi ni kazi ya maji. Mahali watu wengi wanatoka tuseme kilomita 30 kufika mahali maji yuko.
In most homesteads, the carcasses of the cattle rot away. The drought has reduced them to beggars.
Sai ndio tunaona tumeingia shida nyingine kubwa kwa sababu hata shule karibu ifunguliwe. Na hakuna namna kwa sababu ng'ombe ndio tunategemea na ng'ombe ndio hiyo imekufa.
The residents are now calling for intervention from the two levels of government before things get worse. Andrew Ochieng, NTV.
14 minutes to 10 o'clock. We take another short break. Sports news is next.
NTV Sports, my name is Edmond Nyabola. The Kenya Rugby Union has fired Simba's head coach Jerome Powata. The union, however, did not give any reasons as to why they let go of the South African tactician. According to sources who spoke to NTV Sport, the coach was fired due to, quote, politics of selection of the national 15th team players. It is alleged that Coach Powata had a frosty relationship with club chairman over selection, among other issues. The fate of the Powata's assistant, Dominic Habimana, is however not known, even as KRU said it will name a replacement at a later date. This comes 6 months before Kenya begins its campaign for qualification to the 2019 World Cup that is in Japan. Powata has been in charge of the Simbas since 2012, during which Kenya moved to an all-time high of position 22 in the world rankings. Staying with rugby, Nakuru RFC's Oscar Ouma and Menengai Oilers pair of Samuel Muregi and Eric Ombassa will replace Collins Injera and Dennis Ombachi for the Cape Town Sevens leg of the World Rugby Sevens series this weekend. Injera and Ombachi flew back home after suffering injuries at the Dubai Sevens. Ombachi injured his ankle as he made a try in the Pool A match against South Africa, while Injera pulled a hamstring against South Africa in an earlier pool match. Ouma is an experienced series player, while Ombassa and Muregi will be making series debuts. Kenya is in a tough Pool A of the Cape Town Sevens alongside hosts South Africa, France and Russia. Their first match will be against France on Saturday afternoon. Shujaa lies 7th in the standings with 10 points after losing to Australia in the 5th place semi-final of the Dubai Sevens. Reigning champions and record winners Uganda were held to a frustrating goalless draw by Burundi in a Group B opener of the Sekafa Senior Challenge Cup played in Kakamega. The Cranes made several attempts but were unable to break the Burundian defense. Burundi too had their fair share of chances, with former Sofapaka forward Fiston Abdul Razak leading the attack. The result leaves the two teams tied on a point in Group B ahead of the second clash of the group between Ethiopia and South Sudan in Kakamega tomorrow. The Harambee Stars, who top Group A on 3 points, will also take to the field against invited side Libya in their second Group A match at 4 p.m. at Machakos Stadium. The other Group A fixture tomorrow sees Zanzibar take on Rwanda in Machakos from 2 p.m. The 2018 Kenyan Premier League season will begin on February 3rd, with champions Gor Mahia taking on Nakumatt FC at the Kasarani Stadium in their opening fixture. According to the fixtures released today by the Kenyan Premier League, Kogalo will take on rivals FC Leopards in the Super Cup a week before that in the league's curtain raiser at Kasarani Stadium. 2017 league runners-up Sofapaka will kick off their new season campaign against Bandari FC, who recently fired coach Paul Nkata. Ingwe take on Posta Rangers as newly promoted sides Vihiga United and Wazito FC kickstart their top-tier journey against Mathare United and Sony Sugar respectively. The winner of the promotion playoff between Ushuru FC and Thika United, which begins this weekend, will face Kakamega Homeboys in the opening weekend. And further afield, Manchester United will not appeal against the suspension of Paul Pogba, despite the fact that the French midfielder's presence could be crucial in this weekend's Manchester derby. Pogba received a straight red card for a reckless challenge on Arsenal's Hector Bellerin on Saturday. Manager Jose Mourinho said Pogba will...
Well, that's it from the news desk. My name is Gladys Gashanja. Thank you for staying with us, and a special thank you to Flora Atieno, who was our sign language interpreter tonight.
And I'm Trevor Mbija. Always a pleasure having you with us. Have a good night, but don't go anywhere just yet. Jiunge is up next with Press Pass. You know what he's talking about? Women and media. Find out more.